Hey, what is up? Just gonna be continuing to VOD review my games today. Still on GP Luffy. Gonna go through the card by card real quick. Nothing has changed. I'm still using Skip S's list. I did make a change IRL, which I'll go over at the end. But first, card by card. For the Nami Searcher, 4 Fat Zoro, 2 of the Ramp Frankies, 4 Usohachi, 4 Zorojuro, 4 Sanji Pudding, 3 of the Rush Luffy, 4 of the Blocker Sanji 2K, 2 Luffy Toro, 2 Dead Man's Game, 2 Zero Cost events, 4 of the Event Searcher, 4 Gungam Giant, 3 Bagua, and 4 events. So the one change I made, or like I ended up making, that I made, sorry, that I made after I played these games, was that I cut one of the zero cost events down and I added another Dead Man's Game. I think this only being searchable off of Nami and the event searcher currently made it a little bit too inconsistent for my liking, and I really like seeing this card against certain matchups. So I decided to bump it up to 3 and just turn this one down. The way I play, where I just float a ton of Dawn at the end of the turn, I think if you play that way, you can sort of get away with running more of these like event counters, and they don't end up becoming as bricky. But there's definitely a certain trade-off that you can make. But yeah, I think just this card is like just too important right now to only be playing it as a 2 of. So yep, that's pretty much it. And then jumping into our games today, as the title suggests, all these are losses, but I don't want to make the assumption that it's just because I low rolled. I'm sure there's definitely things I could have cleaned up during my gameplay, and I think a lot of like what holds certain people back is like not admitting that they like that they played perfectly and whatnot, and the only reason that they lost is because their opponent high rolled. It happens, like, you know, it's a card game. At the end of the day, there's always going to be variance, but I try to look at it from a point of like GP Luffy is like a consistent enough deck that most of the times when you lose, it's probably something that you did incorrectly. Again, not saying that's always the case. Sometimes you just, there's nothing you can do and you just lose. But I definitely think some of these games I ended up misplaying a ton. So let's just see. So I win the dice roll and I opt to go first, which I think the general consensus so far has been you take their first curve away. I'm not entirely convinced this is correct after playing this matchup a bit more. It may be possible that like just having the extra draw and being able to establish more bodies going second might just be better, but I think that will, I'll just have to do a little bit more testing to see if that's actually the case. But this hand looks pretty good. The only downside is that DMG can't be used to counter out for characters, but we have 2 searchers, and I think that's good enough for what it is. So I opt to keep, and then I start with the Nami searcher after thinking about using the event first, but I want this Nami out just so I can contest Hiyori if they end up playing it out, or if later on they play a Quina or something, then you can just swing a weenie into it. But here, I think the only real thing we can grab is the 2K, just because we need to find 2K to counter out for our bodies when we eventually do play them. So not much to do there. They do play the Hiyori, which sucks for us, but we have the weenie, so it allows us to clear it for free. We just play the search event. Here, I think we just have to grab Giant because we already bottomed 1, and since we saw another 2, this may be the only Giant we see this entire game. So swing 7 there, it's fine. We take the first 5, and they play the Zoro that they grabbed off for the Hiyori earlier. So I decided Event Searcher here. Luckily, find a Zorojuro and just swing 5 and play the Zorojuro. Still no Sanji Pudding, which is really bad. Here, I think there's a couple things we can take. I think another 2K is fine, or the zero cost is fine. The only issue with the zero cost is like we don't really have anything good to pitch off of it. Like everything in our hand we sort of want to keep. Like we don't really have any dead cards. So it's hard to say, but I end up grabbing the 2k instead. So he plays the Tashigi. We should have known that they had the Tashigi because our opponent opted to keep their hand, and then off of the heal research, he didn't search out the Tashigi, so it's probably a good likelihood that they had it in hand already. If we grabbed the zero cost, we could have zero costed out, probably pitched like a Dead Man's Game or the Luffy Taro to save it, and then just maybe swing a 7 with the Zoro here, and then we just 2k out. We do lose 3 cards, but might be worth just to put like extra pressure, but since we didn't grab it, I don't want to give 3 2Ks to save it. So I have to just let it go. Another issue with this though is like, now I have to eat this damage since I'm a 6k leader right now. And then trigger a Bagua off of life, but probably just have to keep this in hand for the counter. And then now we're down to 1. Yeah, I don't know, hard to say. If we have the zero cost, then we zero cost, and then he probably swings the 7 there. Then I'm still at 2 life at that point. So, yeah, it's looking a little rough. Play the Zoro, finally pick up the Sanji pudding. But it may be a little too late. But I think that's still the correct grab. We need to try and slow the game down a little bit. Unfortunately, we don't really have too many tools, but we do have like plenty of counter here. Our opponent grabs the restand event, swings 7 in 2k, swings 8 here. Which I think about it for a bit, and I decide to take. I think this is incorrect. I think I for sure should have countered this one. Whether it's like a Dead Man's Game or the or giving like double 2Ks. I don't think I want to be going down to 0 this early. Since like our opponent doesn't really have yeah, our opponent's gonna like both our units are standing, so they have to have exactly Tashigi in order to tap this down to swing into like both the character and the leader at this point. Otherwise, like, I don't know, this just puts them in such a comfy spot and me in such like a bad position, because now I have to float like $1 billion Dawn every single turn in order to survive, whereas like if I stayed at 1, I still have to kind of do that, but it gives me a little bit more cushion to work with. So I definitely think that was incorrect there. Whether I do Dead Man's Game or I just double 2k and then bog with the leader swing, it's hard to say. But now the opponent's able to establish this Cavendish, which they might still have done even if I even if I counter out of this swing, but that's fine. Like, not much I can do at that point. But now I can just 2k this. And then here I just 6k into leader. He gives me a 2. And now I decide I have to clear the board a bit in order to try and live one more turn, but we know he has the restand event. Gives me another 2. Yeah, our opponents have 4 life. They have a restand event. I have to let this go. I can't save it because he can just then I lose all of the counter. Then he just like goes double 12 into leader. So he does the first 12. My Bagua. 2k, 1k, but now he can restand and then just text more cards this way. If I had like another 2k, then maybe I get there, but I have to DMG for the last Tashigi swing, which is unfortunate, and then I end up dying. Yeah, if I end up living there somehow, then maybe I kill. I doubt it, but because I could swing 6, he counters, 5 takes, 7 takes. Yeah, no, I think I would have died either way. But yeah, definitely going down to 0 that early was definitely what cost me the game. Whether I would have won if I hadn't, it's still hard to say, just because our board stuck so late. But going down to 0 that early was definitely not the move. And then my second game against Zoro, I win dice roll again and I opt to go first. And I decide to mulligan this hand away. Which, thinking back on it, I'm not quite sure. Like, it's super bricky. I have 0 counter, but maybe I can just like double summon eventually enough to the point where I can regain that counter back while establishing a board. But I opt to mulligan it away and then just play the stage and pass. Plays the Hiyori, which is bad because they get to delay the turn. He just grabs a 2k off the Hiyori. But now I have to pass on 3 without doing anything. I take the first hit. Our opponent parks the Queen, and I play the Zorojiro because we don't have a Sanji Pudding. We still don't find a Sanji Pudding off of the Zorojiro, so probably just grab the stage here and then just try and dig deeper. But still nothing, which unfortunately lets them set up this Cavendish. Now they can just jam. 8, which maybe I 2k 1k there just to force them to spend that this 3 for the restand event if they have it, because now I take that hit. If they restand event, then I potentially, actually I probably 2k 2k there, so I probably should have been fine. But now it gives our opponent the ability to search, unfortunately. So now we have to waste another turn playing this Queen, and then we can Luffy Taro into Sanji Pudding finally. And then we pass with 3 Dawn up, which is fine. Our opponent searches, grabs a Mihawk, plays the Tashigi, pokes 6 with leader, which we have to 1k. Decides to just jam 12, which we can Bagua and 2k out. And then we just take this last one, trigger an event. Probably just grab the DMG here. Here, just clear the searcher. And then just poke twice into their leader. Play a rush and poke another 7. Stage boost the rush. And then do a little bit more searching. I think it's a little too late for a second Sanji Pudding. So probably just grab the Usohachi here, yep. Then he does play the Mihawk. Swing 6, 2k, 7, after 2k this as well. Our opponent opts to swing 11. And I giant, and I pitched the DMG, which I think this was incorrect. I think I definitely just, if I'm going to save this, I think I definitely just pitched the second rush here. Because this way, like, they're floating 3. We could just play it out. And then I also donated 2k here for no reason, so I guess I just brain farted. And then 10 here, I think for a bit, and then I decide to counter out. Which I should have just taken. I think I have to kill this turn. I'm just like put in a position like maybe the chance of killing might be really low, but I don't think, like, even if I save that life, I have 1 2k in hand. If I play the Sanji Pudding, I get 1 draw, but regardless of what I draw, it's not saving me from 4, potentially 5, maybe even 6 swings. So I think I have to kill. So taking that last life was probably correct, and not ditching my second Dead Man's game, because we can see what ends up happening out here, but and obviously if they restand like if I take their, so if I take here, I guess I don't get to see what my last life was. Oh, we'll come back to that part, but we'll see how it played it out. So swing 8s. Opponent DMGs and 1Ks. Swing 7. Opponent 2K 1Ks. Swing 7. Opponent blocks. Then I swing 7. And just 8-8, which these are like not that great numbers, but he has another DMG and another 1K, and has 2 2Ks left over to be able to counter out. Which earlier, like when I was saving this, if I pitch the rush Luffy, then I can't go for this. I can't go for game that way, but it gives me access to 2 Deadman's games. So, and essentially, like what happens here is if he goes 10 and I take, and he restanded abilities and swings another 10, then I can do like give up 1 DMG and 1 2K and I live. He's tapped out on Dawn and just has the 1 blocker. If he swings the blocker, then I just DMG, use the second DMG to get out of that swing, and then he has no blocker, no Dawn up, and all those counter events he used earlier go to waste. And then but let's say like I go to 0 and then he leaves his blocker standing, and then the 3 Dawn up, I can DMG the blocker and 1 Dawn, and then swing a 7. If he Paradise Waterfalls, then he has to give me 1 card anyways, along with the Paradise Waterfall. Then I can leader ability and use the second Deadman's game to tap the blocker and tap the last Dawn again, and then I can swing like, I can probably swing like 7, 7, 7, 8 again, I think. And then all those counter events turn into bricks at that point. So I don't know if it gets there again. It's hard to say. They had like a good amount of counters, so they might still be able to. They might have still been able to counter out, but like, I think if I go down to 0 here, there's also a chance that like they get baited into going all in, and then I think in a situation where I don't have to DMG to tap stuff down, like I kill for sure. So yeah, definitely misplayed a bit there. I could have still potentially possibly lost. Again, I stuck like my board a little too late. You definitely want to be seeing like it's pretty bad if my board's completely empty and I'm going into my 7. But yeah, I definitely could have possibly stolen this game as well if I played it a little bit better. And going on to the last game against Blue Purple, which I've been seeing a ton of these guys running around now. So I win dice roll here, and I choose to go second. I think after testing a bit more, I think taking first is better in this matchup still, because you can play Sanji Pudding on curve, and if they've ramped, you can stage boost the Sanji Pudding, and you don't have to leader ability, and then you can go into like Luffy Taro into Sanji Pudding like the next turn as well. So and then if you can also like play Frankie out and stuff too to like keep up with their Dawn, and then making them go second forces them to have Bonkley, and then also like their God Thread is a little bit off curve, which you can also like if you stage boost the Sanji Pudding, then they don't get to really God Thread like a meaningful body. So my starting hand was pretty good. So Nami, Bagua, the stage, Usohachi, I think. Let me see again. yeah, Usohachi and the Luffy Taro, like these are all cards you want to see in this matchup, so I have to keep. Start with the stage, or event, which is fine, and then grab a Frankie, which I think is also fine. Pass to our opponent, he swings 6, and I trigger out a 0 cost, but I opt not to use it, which I definitely should have, because then I would go to 5 next turn, and what I could have done is go Zoro, leader ability, stage boost the Zoro, then play swing 6 with my leader, and then play the Frankie out, and then gain a Dawn back. And then what that effectively allows me to do is, like, he can't remove that Zoro on that turn since it's stage boosted, and I can swing like 6, possibly another 6 if I leader ability the next turn, and then this Frankie can contest the Zoro. But now all I do is end up playing this Frankie out, which doesn't do anything on play, and I just end up passing. I counter 1 here, plays the Blanc Clay. Yeah, and then like if I did the play I talked about last time, and then he ends up God Threading the Frankie away, yeah, that kind of like sucks, but at the same time, it's like not the end of the world. Now I go down to 2, and then I find a Sanji Pudding, which is pretty good. Since he's at 7, I can afford to still attack first and ramp up, so I can keep up and down with our opponent and still draw off the Sanji Pudding. I boost, and then I can play the Zoro and grab a Rush Luffy, I think, which is perfectly fine. Opponent clears the Frankie, swings 6, which I think I have the 2k out of, and unfortunately has the Mihawk. And then I search with the Nami, clear the Bon Clay, swing 6, and I opt to go with the Rush this turn after searching one more time, which I don't think is correct. I think what I could have done instead, because like we don't have any like meaningful pressure. Like it's good that our opponents tap down so they can't counter event here and they have to naturally counter out, so this could have put them at 1. But even if they go to 1, I don't think it's the worst. Instead we could have gone Luffy Taro, and going Dawn minus with the Luffy Taro puts us down enough to be able to play this Sanji. So then we go 3 wide. The only issue with that is like we don't have any natural counter. So if he swings like a 6 into the Zoro, which he probably will do, like we might have to like 0 cost the event away, which kind of sucks. But like we already have another searcher, so it's fine. And then we can go. We'll be like 3 wide on board instead of just having 2. Our opponent draws a 2k, and then I just counter out, and then probably just bog with this one, stay healthy on Dawn, and then go Sanji into Nami. And puts it to the top. So since I knew like our opponent drew a 2k, I just decided to check him with the 6. Gives a 2k, so decided to play the Sanji Pudding out. Probably just swing another 6 here, to be honest. Or maybe a 7. Yeah, I guess it doesn't matter 7k checking him here. Now he's forced to gear 2 that swing. And then we can grab another giant with the event searcher, which is fine. Opponent grabs a giant, which tells me our opponent did not find any 2Ks off of the stack. So now we can start trying to tax them with 7K swings. Because typically the way you want to order it when you're playing UP is like you reveal the 2K, and then you draw the giant for turns, so you don't reveal to your opponent that you have a giant, since it makes it easier to play around. So I'm guessing our opponent like wants to draw into something else, or just didn't find a 2K from the stack, which is fine. because I think we taxed a good amount of 2Ks anyways. So this is where we can start swinging odd numbers. Or it's like a good sign to say like we can swing odd numbers and it'll be fine. And our opponent takes like a really long time to think, so I'm gonna skip forward a bit. Top decks it and draws a card and then swings 6 at the Zoro, which is fine. Then decides to go 9 into the rush, so he giants. And then another 9, which I Bagua out of. Then goes Sanji into Rosinante. Decided to swing 8, which again, like what I talked about earlier, in terms of like them showing us the giant, like this isn't an ideal giant, but it's better than gianting out of a 7. But they immediately giant, so I swing another 8, which it should have been in reverse. I should have swung 7. If they counter out, then I swing another 7 here. If they giant, then I can swing the 8. So now I have to use another Dawn. God Thread triggers. And then I use the search event, which I think in this particular situation, like I think maybe searching would have been. I think searching might have been better first, because I don't think we're realistically killing this turn. And then us seeing like this DMG off the top like gives us a bit more options, I want to say. Because I think at this point, like what I end up doing is I tap down the Dawns, and I just start swinging 7, which our opponent takes. Swing 9. Which I think maybe swing 7, 8, 8 might have been better there. Because our opponent was able to, they had 2 2Ks. So is our opponent tapped out at that point? Yeah, this swing order was just like really odd, I think. Oh no, the first, okay. Oh, they had a counter event for the first swing. Okay, so maybe it doesn't get there. I think another option that we could have had though is our opponent ends the turn with 3 Dawn floating. So if I like instead of swinging first here, if I played the event first and I see the DMG, I think a potential line would have been to, let's see, where does the line, where does it start? So instead here, I search 1, and then I could tap down the Rosinante and the Nami, and then start swinging 7s and 8s at the Nami and the Rosinante, and try and live one more turn against 4, potentially 5 swings if they play like another rush threat, and try to live another turn that way. I don't know if that's necessarily correct. There's like a good chance I die, but I do have 2 health, and I do have 2 giants. If they end up countering out of like these swings, that means they were healthy enough to counter out a leader anyways, and I would have lost either way. And also, like they get a God Thread trigger out of life, which allows them to ramp back up, which allows another set of like counter events to go through. Because like, I believe Gear 2 also doesn't let you counter out for characters. So they'll have to specifically have Bagua or Giants, or Natural Counter in order for them to save these two. So what I can do is like, yeah, tap down the Dawn. And how much do I have after leader ability? So after leader ability, if I didn't attach one here, then I have 6 to work with. Then I go like 7, attach 1 7, then I have 5. And then depending on how they counter it out, we can like attach another one here, leave 4 up and go another 7, then we have another 7, and then we have another 8. If these die earlier, then we can redirect the swings to either life or even try to jam a little bigger into one of the bigger bodies and potentially get that off the board as well. Because if because our opponent has 1 giant for sure. So if our opponent ends up gianting out of like these 2, then we can jam big potentially into like a Mihawk or a Sanji. But if our opponent giants to save like either the Resonante or the Nami, and then taps out, that's when we can go for the bigger body at that point. Because this point they pitch a Bagua. They hadn't. I don't think they have any other real counter events in hand, because they give a giant and a Kyros. So it was giant Kyros and then 2 unknown cards. He gets the God Thread trigger. Yeah, I think splitting evenly here, like, like 788 was probably better than going 996 as well. Just makes the swings a little bit more awkward to counter out of, I think. And Bonclay. Yeah, because essentially out of that entire exchange, they only had 2 1Ks, and then they had like 2 Gear 2s, a couple bricks. So like the Luffy was a brick, the Sanji was a brick, the what else did they have as a brick? The Kyros was a brick. Whereas like, and then obviously they got some of those cards out of like out of Gungam Giant and stuff too. So if I swing like 7 at one of the characters, they can like Bagua and then Giant the next one. But then after that, it's like they're probably not living anyways. Yeah, so it's hard to say. I think maybe I could have lived for, like, try to play for another turn there. I think it would have been a little dicey either way I played it, but I think, like, just the way I swung here, I think if I was going to swing this way and try to go for the kill, like, starting with an 8 here is not correct. I probably should have started with the 7, and try to force out counter in, like, very odd situations. Because I think that 8 was just like too good of a value for the giant. Yeah, and the God Thread trigger is just a little unfortunate. But that is what it is. Yeah, hard to say. I think definitely if I am able to clear, if I'm able to clear 3 bodies, I think I 100% win. If I can only clear 2, then it gets a little bit tricky because they go 9, 9, 9. They can even play the rush for 8 and then swing like 8, and I think, what is that, 8 or a 9k? I think it's a 9k. Yeah, I'm not sure. This one's a bit tricky. If anyone has any like ideas on what I could have done better there, like, I'd love to know. But I definitely think the way I swung the numbers at the end, they're just like we're like really, really bad numbers, and I just die either way. So anyways, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. See ya.